And I wondered if that is a challenge for you. Do you have to think hard about that? Because maybe it's just me, but I feel like if I'm playing even other instruments with a band, I think bagpipes are so in my head that like I might be on an accordion or a banjo or something, and I feel like once I start, I better keep coming up with sounds because I got to keep going. It's really hard for me personally to like know when to step back and be quiet once I've started.
Yeah.
Is that something that is in your head? Did you have to like consciously say, now that's enough whistle for a minute, I'm going to step back and let, somebody else step up and play? Or is that coming naturally to you at this point?
I think it comes down to an arrangement of each set. They're all going to be different, but I think for that one, for example, it's just like that. The actual arrangement of the tune is very simple. I don't really. I play it as an A-B tune. It's just 3 times through, really. And I think there wasn't much thought came along. Like I did a lot of that middle section just on MIDI on the keyboard, just sitting playing about, and just like you need like where's it going to go now, and then just start playing about. And I put a synth sound up just because I needed to fill a bit of space. And I was sitting with Steve, was over, we were just in the flat, and I just played this synth solo, and that's the solo that's stayed in the track.
Oh, you just kept that exact one, huh?
It's just like, it just seemed to be, sometimes when things just happen, it's like, that's perfect.
Yeah, you just gotta trust that was right.
There's a wee Hammond kind of part, and that was me playing.
Was it really?
Yeah, but what we do is like I was MIDI, but then you reroute it through Hamish's keyboard.
I got you. Yeah.
He plays through Hamish's keyboard, and then the same thing with the synth. We just rerouted it through the synth, and then, but we messed about with sounds on it, but the actual part is just MIDI in the house. So I think. So I have played all these things, and if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But other people are going to play it, live.
That makes sense. So, that makes sense. So you're looking at this as like the creator of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so it's even as I'm listening, I'm imagining you as one of the players sitting there on the whistle, which of course you were also that.
Yeah.
But if zooming out into that other position, you're there all the time, even if the whistle is quiet.
From the start, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like the 2 albums before this one, myself and Steve did a lot more collaboration together. I would kind of get them to a certain point, and then Steve would come in, and especially Sanctuary, when we spent a lot of time together. And then, but unfortunately through COVID, Steve had to go back to Ireland. So I only got 2 days with Steve with this album.
That's it.
And the rest of the time, I spent a lot of time up at Hamish's, the keyboard player. I went up to Hamish's house in Granton-on-Spey, and I set up my gear and did a lot of work. So I did. So kind of Hamish became the right-hand man in this album.
Gotcha.
And we worked on quite a lot of kind of cool keyboard parts. I think if you know if there's a track 8, Sink or Swim. That's a lot of stuff that. That actually Hamish, he came up with quite a few of these lines. Just you'll hear them in the background. They're really kind of lovely wee lines that kind of add to the overall picture, if you know what I mean. basically what I do is I'm trying to at home. I'm just trying to make a guide, like a basic guide of the whole arrangement of a track. And
Mm.
then once you've got that, then I like to get some input from other people because then they can go, like I think that's maybe a bit too long. Need a bit more interest there. Something that you're
Mm.
not really hearing yourself. You maybe get too involved, and then
Yeah, too much in
for
it.
somebody else to step back and have a listen. And so yeah, but that step in the divide is quite a simple arrangement, I would say.
Hmm.
The middle bit
Gotcha.
did take out, like we played about with the middle bit, but it's basically a vibe, really. It's kind of
Hmm.
it's this, and there's a cool drum in there, a udu drum. Have you ever heard one of them?
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
that one is like boing, boing,
Yeah,
boing.
it's like
That
a
one. Yeah, very
clay
cool.
pot kind of thing. There's a hole in it that when you hit it, it gives it that kind of bass.
Mm.
They're tuned so that you can get the actual note.
Yeah.
You hit the kind of sides, that gives you kind of a clicky sound. You could
Mm.
also, if you hit the top, you can make it kind of got like you can mess with that bass note. Boing, boing, you can kind of
Yeah.
like manipulate the sound of it. It's a cool. I think it's maybe a more of an Indian. They have a version of that in India. I can't remember the name, but Shakti used to be tabla, Zakir Hussain, and the clay pot. That was the percussion thing.
Yeah.
The
Sound right?
Indian
In
version
the
is
center
much
of the drum
bigger.
head.
It's much bigger as well
Mm.
than the one that
Mm.
James has got. But it's the same thing. But
Yeah.
they've got a really cool sound. I love them. It's
So
just
would
because it's tuned. It's quite good that it's actually like a note.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean that was my favorite parts of that track. And
Mhm.
so was James McIntosh is listed as your drums and percussionist on this album. Did James kind of just like bring his whole bag of tricks to the studio one day and be like, "Here's the stuff I've got. Let's see what sounds cool." Or what was that like to
Kind
mix
of.
that stuff in?
Well, that drum was a last minute kind of thing, which he
Was
just
it?
recorded at
Huh.
home. Yeah, just because it was sounding a wee bit bare. That part,
Hmm.
it just needed a wee bit of a build from something, a bit of more interest. So he recorded. He record. We've used that before. I don't know if maybe in my albums, but because he's played on me and Jarlath's albums, and
Hmm.
we've used that on. I think on our first album, we used that drum. Yeah, James pretty much played most of the kind of world sounding drums.
Hmm.
Paul Jennings played the more rocky drums,
Hmm.
and Steve Burns also played drums and guitar on track 7,
Hmm.
Rat
So you got
Horns.
Steve on.
That's Steve
Yeah,
played
gotcha.
drums as well as guitar. And then
Was there?
there's also another guy called John Blees, who's also a great drummer and percussionist. We did a session. I just went to his house. He's got a studio in his garden, so we did
Hmm.
also another like after recording the back and actually once the album was nearly finished, we went over and added like just shakers, triangle, cabasas
Sure. Yeah.
after just like we add-ons, but
The percussion line stuff. Yeah.
percussion stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that. Speaking of Steve, I was thinking that I was probably hearing Bazooki in there, and I would have assumed that was him. But now you mentioned he was on drums. I guess maybe was I hearing you on Cittern then
Cittern,
when
yeah.
I thought I was
Cittern
hearing Bazooki? Is
mandola.
probably.
Yeah,
Mm,
sometimes it's guitar and mandola or guitar and Cittern. I think
gotcha,
if you like in
gotcha.
track 5, there's definitely, and then after there's like track 8, I'm playing a lot of the picky mandola parts.
Yeah.
Last track is slow down. I'm playing the mandola.
Well, I want to dive into some of these tracks and ask
Yeah,
you more questions about them.
yeah,
Shoot, I guess chronologically on the album, you just mentioned track 3. That's Cast in a Pool of Knowledge.
yeah.
It did make me wonder, Ross, have you ever got work doing music for films, or have you ever thought about that? This one just felt really cinematic to me in a really cool way. Like I could imagine all kinds of scenes playing out to this track, you know?
Yeah, I would like to. I've not really had the chance. I've written a few theatre things over the years, but
Hmm.
I would love to write for films. But
Yeah.
Yeah, that I think that's probably my favourite track on the album, the track 3.
Yeah.
It started like it's basically in 2 parts.
Mm-hmm.
That first part I've been playing about with that for a lot. I think it was actually, I had it in my computer from when I was doing Vanna, and it was always a kind of plan to get it into Vanna, I think. And I've just never managed to get a second part. I just didn't know where to go. You know, when it finishes, like it's just a kind of string line, and then it stops. That's where it was on the computer for years. And then I've been trying to kind of work out where to go after it. There was this one night I thought, let's have a shot, and I just started playing some more string kind of pads, and then then just kind of it slows down a bit. It's just gradually trying to build these string lines, very slow pads, kind of building along, and then it's like one of these things. It's just like very quick. The tune, the melody, just kind of wrote itself. It's kind of, there's a kind of P-rocky kind of sound to it a wee bit.
Oh sure, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's when the whistle comes in for sure. That
whistle,
I haven't even made that connection. You're right. Yeah, absolutely, I can see that. Yeah.
So that just one night, and I was just like so glad to get that finished, because it's obviously, it sits in your mind a lot of these. If you've got a track finished, you know about it.
Yeah. They haunt
like,
you at night when you try to go to sleep, right? Like, finish me.
It's true, Yeah, it becomes annoying that it's like unfinished. I think when Steve was over, I think we had a wee play about it, and it's because it gets quite heavy at the end, and that tom solo, I don't know, I was thinking of Pink Floyd kind of sound, when you hear that kind of
interesting,
that tom.
Yeah.
Played in by MIDI as well, and then like what James is playing is not exactly, but it's similar to what I'd put in on the MIDI,
Yeah.
I should let you hear some of these my guides. You'd laugh.
Yeah, I think that would be really interesting. Yeah, what was the original direction, and how did it end up?
That's where rat horns came from, because it's a stupid name, but
that's if I had to pick a name from all the tracks, that might have been my favorite one, actually.
Yeah, well, it stuck because of Sorley, who designed the album.
I was going to ask you if he did this cover as well. Yeah,
Sorley. So he was up at the house. I was just letting him hear some of the stuff I've been working on, and it was like there's a brass solo in that near the end. So I just played that on MIDI. just with two fingers, like
Yeah.
and then just quantized it, and then put like a brass section MIDI on it. And then it was sort of it just sounds like rat horns, it's just like
Rat horns, huh?
rat horns.
Album, just like for my personal listening, Ross, is I got the physical album and I listened to that several times before I streamed it or looked at the track list. So I actually didn't know what the tracks were called the first few times that I listened to it. And so then the first time that I listened to it on like a streaming platform where I could look over and see what each track was called, I saw rat horns, and the image in my head was a rat with antlers. That's where my head went. And it wasn't until I was typing up notes for this interview that I was like, rat horns, like, I enjoyed this name. I wondered, is there an interesting behind this name? And then I went, those horn stabs are so cool. And then I went, oh, rat horns. It's the horns. I got you.
The horns, But yeah, it's just, it's like that. You get the Casio keyboard sound of a.
Yeah, totally.
I'll send you a wee voice note of it.
Oh, that'd be fascinating. I would love to hear that. Yeah. Now, I was curious about that. You mentioned that cast in the pool of knowledge that had been floating around for you for years. Are there any other elements of this album? Because last time we talked, you mentioned that you often have like a Dropbox folder where you're dropping ideas until it kind of builds into a thing. Like, how far back is that the oldest element of this album, or how far back do parts of this stretch versus being made for the album recently?
See, what happens is, so if I say I would go like album 4 or something, so that would be Vanna. What I don't use, so I'll just chuck ideas in that. Whatever I don't use, I'll just put them into album 5, and then that's the start of album 5, and then so already I've got an album 6.
No way. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, because it's basically it's like I did Live from the Gorbals. It's basically a live version of Vanna.
Sure.
So, So I kind of, because there's a lot of stuff that didn't make it on this Pool album that I've been working on. So
that's so exciting, Ross. I didn't want to put pressure on you, but I was curious. Like, when's the next one coming?
Yeah. I think I need to change my tack. Like, I think I've done enough. That's 3 albums now that are all in the similar, not strategy, but there's a formula I suppose I've followed for the last 3 albums, and I think I need to do something different now. So
in between them, though, you did have like Loss with Bridget
I mean for my own stuff.
For your own stuff, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. I think I want to change. I want to change the way I go about it. I think. Yeah, I think I've done enough of this because I'm basically following a formula. Like with the like I want it to be kind of as much as possible be a cohesive journey.
Sure, yeah.
I always, I've had Jock, who's my friend, a poet, always a wee bit of wisdom from Jock. Near the end of the album, it's like I've had a template, I suppose you could call it a template that I've been working with for the last 3 albums. So I think
do you feel like did you stumble into that template kind of by by mistake to start with, or did you kind of like sit down at one point, or did somebody else say, here's an idea of how you could put an album together? Like how cerebral was this versus feeling your way through it?
I think it's all because of the Sanctuary album. That was definitely was the thing, was to try and have a full album just simultaneously. It all just runs right through. And I guess it's just like, well, I need to just keep going, But 3, I think 3 is a good amount of, or maybe 5, maybe 5. I don't know. I think 3's probably enough. I think it's kind of, I think in order to keep it fresh, if you're following the same templates all the time, you're
Hmm.
basically just making the same thing but different. If you know what I mean.
Interesting. Hmm.
So, but which is good. I think it's good having a challenge of like, well, what's happening next, you know?
Yeah.
I love the world music thing, so I don't think that's gonna. It's definitely gonna have the same sound. I just
Hmm.
think the way of you go around, the process I think has to change.
Hmm.
Rather than I don't think the sound will change. You know what I
So
mean?
maybe me as a listener wouldn't be able to put my finger on something being like I'd still be like, oh, that's Ross Ainslie. I hear Ross Ainslie there. Like there's his sound, but
Yeah, I
there'd be
think
something
if you've
new
got all
about
the
how it would come
same,
together.
I really like I call it the Sanctuary Band, but it's not really a band. It's like more of
Hmm.
it's a recording band, if you know what I mean. We've
Sure.
got
Yeah.
we've got some gigs coming up, but I like to be honest, I don't like being a front guy of a band, so I kind of shy away
Hmm.
from doing gigs with my stuff. I don't really I particularly enjoy it, you know.
Hmm.
So I
Interesting.
think that's another thing, if we just backtrack a bit to when you were saying about giving other people more chance to shine or
Yeah.
I think that I would do that instinctively just to get the attention from just being my thing. Do you know what I
Just
mean?
give yourself a break, huh?
And also calling it a sanctuary band, I like that it's just not my name on it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't
So you're
mind.
not
I
gonna
don't.
go starting a group that's like the Ross Ainslie Quartet or something like that in the
Well, I mean,
future.
I've done it in the past. It's just I just don't.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's you're in a tricky situation because also obviously I love writing music and I love recording albums.
Hmm.
If you don't do a gig with your name on it or whatever, then it defeats the point. What's the point in doing it? Like
Sure.
you
Yeah.
have to do it live. It's
Hmm.
just I just don't particularly enjoy. I like being in the ranks of a band. I love being in a band when somebody's really good at chat and like
Yeah.
speaking to the audience. I'm not good at it, so
Mm.
I love when you're in the band and somebody is like that because it's
Yeah.
so enjoyable, and it's enjoyable for everyone. When I have to speak, that's the only thing I think about is like what I'm going to say. So
Ah.
so it ruins my gig. It ruins the
Gotcha.
fun
Yeah.
for me. I think and. You would think over the years I would get used to it, but like I'm a wee bit more comfortable with it. But I think also as well, I think maybe it's why I wanted to do an album straight through, and because then
Hmm.
you don't have to speak.
Oh,
You
yeah.
just
Just
you
fill
just
all that
go
time with
through, you know.
music.
Yeah,
You never have to stop.
I
Yeah.
think maybe just you know subconsciously that's maybe one of the reasons why I you know I don't
So
know.
do you think that it's possible that like somewhere maybe like you say subconsciously like the feel like you mentioned last time we talked that like you like the idea of these journey albums that like if there's not a silence between tracks like a skip
Yeah,
that you wouldn't know when it moved from one track to the next. Do you think there might be like a utilitarian part of your mind deep down in there that's going like no silence in between tracks means when I play this live,
I
I
know.
don't have to say anything.
I definitely think there would be an element of that
Interesting.
for sure.
Like at least keep the drones going, like if nothing
Yeah.
else.
Well, we've done a few gigs with the Sanctuary Band, and they're always like it is a special thing because there's a lot of music there that we've done all the same it's all the same guys really.
Yeah.
Added some people in, but so it's and they're all people that are kind of like-minded. Everyone's got a voice on their own.
Mm.
Anyway, everyone's making all albums with their own name, so it's kind of
Hmm.
and everyone's really diverse and can fit into a lot of different genres. So it's
Mm.
fun. It's like it's taken a long time to be able to get a group of people that are you know what they're going to do is what you're wanting to hear, if you know what I
Ah, sure, yeah.
mean. So yeah, so I think I don't think I'll be changing the clientele of when I record
Hmm.
albums. I think I
Yeah.
just need to change the. It's more for me. It's more of the template for me. It's more of a thought process in my for the process of writing. I think I need to
Yeah.
just have a wee fresh look at it.
That makes sense. Yeah. I'm not to focus in too much on, it, but you mentioned the toms that feeling kind of like Pink Floyd. It just that's one thing that I've always enjoyed about watching Pink Floyd shows. I was kind of in a big way raised on Pink Floyd, and so we would watch videos of Pink Floyd shows all the time when I was a kid.
Right.
And that is a band that, like, once the music starts, it doesn't stop for 2 hours. You know,
I know.
like there's no banter in between tracks. It's all music all the time.
Yeah, and I like that. It's just, it becomes more of a. I think it becomes a bit more intense.
Mm.
You know, I think. Yeah, I think we've got a few gigs coming up. There's a gig in Perth and a gig in Glasgow, Celtic Connections, and then
Mm.
there's one in Edinburgh in May as well. So we'll probably add in a few more, um, but for me that's enough for me. You know, it
Mm.
still keeps it kind of exciting, I suppose. I think if you're doing things all the
Mm.
time, yeah, I think you maybe lose the buzz of or that nervous excitement thing.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, you get too comfortable with it. It
yeah.
becomes normal.
And we'll never get too comfortable because we're not going to play it enough, you know.
Keep yourselves uncomfortable. That's the goal.
So,
Well, I wonder, Russ, if it's me overthinking it. You feel free to tell me. But I felt like this definitely felt to me like a one complete big album. Like it all belongs together for sure. But for me as a listener, that intensified between tracks 4 and 6. From Karmatic through All My Years into Call of the Void.
yeah,
And like I say, the first few times I listened to it, I didn't know what the tracks were called.
yeah,
And the first time that I did know what the tracks were called as I was listening, especially All My Years, man, I was like, if I had heard that track title, I could have picked out which song that went with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it felt like it fit so perfectly to me. And I was curious if is this just me or was this in your head? Like I feel like Karmatic, and maybe this is suggestive because of the title. I'm like, it feels like I'm looking back at a summary of all my deeds, like my life, you know, like what all has happened. All My Years feels like I'm reflecting on that. And then Call of the Void feels like I'm turning to see what's next.
hmm
Is that just me getting too poetic, or does that
No, I
strike
think
any kind of chord with you?
yeah, it does. But what's good about, and this is the thing I love the most about doing albums, is I'll have a completely different view or thought or image on that than somebody listening will.
Yeah.
And I love that basically everyone on their own is going to have their own journey with listening. And I love if you it's too much to ask, but you know, if you could, you know, if you gave somebody your album and said, right, tell me, where did you go?
Yeah.
What happened? You know, when you were listening. Imagine the stories you'd get.
Yeah. And they would be so different, right?
So different, because you know, everyone's got their own life experiences, which is going to add in. Everyone's got their own dreams, their, you know, wants, whatever. So you know, because I'm always quite visual with music. When I listen to music, I'll imagine myself, and a movie will be playing out. You know, I'll be a actual. It's not just I don't just listen. It's I actually get right. I'll put me somewhere, and something will be playing out. You know, it'll be like I'll be watching a script or a movie. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it would be so cool to see, or just to hear, like you know, when people are listening along, where what were you imagining?
Yeah.
You know, that's my favourite thing about, or not my favourite thing, but like a interesting thing about writing music, and when you record it and then it gets sent out to the world, and then what are people, because it's going to be completely different to what I'm seeing.
Yeah, let's see what it does once it goes out there, huh?
And you're saying, you know, like from 4 to 6, you're having all these different feelings, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's a cool thing.
Does that feel to you like it's like the creative process just doesn't stop? You know, it's like you're bouncing ideas around in your own head, you know, trying stuff out on instruments, then you're bouncing around with the other instruments, the other musicians. It eventually goes out to the world, and it's not like it's a static thing then. It keeps bouncing around to everybody who's listening to it and how they react to it. It's like a continuation of creation in a way.
Yeah, it's never ending. Yeah, but you don't really hear, unless you were to ask somebody, You know, you don't
Yeah,
really
you don't
do
get
it.
to know, do
It's
you?
too
You
much
just
to
have to
ask
sit there and
somebody
wonder.
going like when you listen to an album and write every single thought and
Right.
you know, but maybe I should ask 10 people or something.
Maybe I bet you'd get at least a few. You've got a large enough listenership. I bet you'd get at least a few people who'd be willing to, who'd be excited to give you that kind of bounce those ideas back to you.
It's just you never know whether because I suppose that could also, by hearing somebody else's thoughts or places where they've been with where listening, it could then spur you on to write something differently for the next one, or I don't know. I think audience feedback is a good thing. Yeah, like good and bad, you know.
Yeah, sure. Well, we could treat this as a call. Hey, anybody listening to this right now, like, write up what you feel and what happens to you when you listen to Pool and send it to Ross.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I will say though, one of the things that I felt was like surprising, not what I expected, was that track 6, Call of the Void.
Yeah.
Like if I heard that title by itself, I would expect something kind of like dark, maybe somber, mysterious, and I'm like, man, if where my head was going was like, if this is like what is beyond the grave is calling me or something like that, or something out in outer space is calling to me, sounds like there's a party going on over there, like sounds like it's gonna be a good time, whatever it is, so.
Call of the Void and also High Place Phenomenon and Step in the Divide, they're all the same thing.
How so? Tell me about that.
So, have you ever been on a hilltop or just looking over a cliff and you're like, oh, what if I jump?
Oh yeah, I live surrounded by mountains all the time. That intrusive thought, absolutely. I totally know what you mean. Yeah.
That's Call of the Void.
Oh, gotcha.
Step in the Divide or High Place Phenomenon. It's all the same thing.
Gotcha.
No, so I have some. I won't say, but I have some really funny ones that I get, and it's nothing to do with jumping off a bridge or any of that kind of thing. But I have them when I speak to people. I have
those intrusive thoughts, like what if I did this kind of thing.
I get it like all the time. So that's
yeah.
So
I'm gonna be watching.
Everyone.
I'm gonna watch your track titles in future. I'm gonna be watching for something that might be peeking through, like that's that's Ross giving voice to the thing that's been in his head.
And I find it really funny, and like sometimes it's quite hard to control.
Oh yeah.
And especially like that. If you're just like, if there's a bit of water, like a plunge pool kind of thing, and you're on the cliff. I'm so close to just going,
Yeah.
So I think I get them all the time. So I think that I just wanted to. I think they're quite. It's quite personal to me anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
that's cool.
Everyone gets it.
Well, speaking of High Place Phenomenon, if Call of the Void, it's fun that. Call of the Void for sure was like not what I was expecting as far as the track title goes, in a very delightful way, like awesome surprise, High Place Phenomenon, definitely the same kind of feeling, because that's the first thing I heard. I got the album, I know that it's called Pool, and I see the album cover art, that's it, and I put it in the machine and I hit play. High Place Phenomenon starts, and it's like not what I was expecting at all, right? And I was in my kitchen, my kids are all around, my wife and I were putting dinner together, and she's like, "This is a bagpipe album?" I just shrugged, right? The kids are immediately dancing around the table, you know, just a party right away, you know, and not what I was expecting.
Well, me neither, to be honest. You know, when something excites you yourself while writing or when finished writing, for me, it's just like, that's an opener of an album.
Yeah.
But it's a wee bit different. I wouldn't normally, I think, like a lot on this album, I wouldn't normally write bass parts, and I wouldn't normally write string lines, things. And for this one I did. I think it's because maybe I was more on my own rather than, you know, I worked a wee bit more with Hamish, but I think if maybe Steve was there, I think maybe I would have left it more open. I think because I was on my own, I just thought like, maybe I should just, you know, because you want to hear the guides, you want them to be as full as you can, you know?
Yeah.
So the bass, so a lot of the bass parts were written in MIDI, and then I just exported the MIDI into Sibelius and then sent them round, you know? But that I think I love this band called Faro in the Dark. They're a Brazilian band. I saw them in Nijmegen. I used to play in a band. Well, I still do. They just don't play that much salsa celtica. It's salsa and Scottish music.
Yeah.
So we were in Nijmegen in Holland playing at this World Music Festival, and we had the Friday off. So we just went to the festival to check it out. And Faro in the Dark were playing. I've never heard them in my life, and like probably one of the best live bands I've ever seen in my life. It was so good. And it was all like triangle led. There was like 2 triangle players, a big sub drum, great bass player, and the Brazilian flute and singing. That was basically the band. So I think I've been listening to him so much over the years. I think just naturally I've kind of tried to, you know, like the bass line's so simple, but it's like, you know, and it almost becomes like a jam band thing. It's just like, just keep a groove going. It's rocking.
Yeah.
Why change?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
So I think it just started in that way of just like write a kind of jam band piece where the bass is just a groove and it doesn't stop. And then just, I think, I don't know how that string line, I think I maybe just must have played a wee line on the synth kind of thing. And it's got a kind of car chase feel to it, you know?
I can dig that for sure. Yeah, and that bass line it's immediately, it's rolling in my head the whole time you're talking, and I'm like do 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 the whole time you're talking. I mean, it's infectious.
The whole tune.
Yeah, it's great though. Like you say, why change if it's grooving? Keep it going.
They're rocking away. It's great. I think
those strings though. Oh, go ahead, Ross.
I think a lot of the albums, like the album I think I had in the kind of Brazilian world music groove kind of thing. Not all of it, but you'll know the ones, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Those string parts, those were what immediately I was like, it was just screaming disco at me. Is that just me, or were you thinking that?
No, for sure. Yeah, it's like a
gotcha.
70s disco thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where does, like, I know I've got an idea of like your interest in world music and that you've played with like salsa celtica and stuff like that. I didn't know you were a disco guy. Have you always been a disco guy, or is this a new interest for sake of this album? Like, I'm imagining a backstory, like you maybe had a matron aunt who really loved disco when you were a kid, and so you're like digging back to your childhood in a way for these string stabs, you know?
No, I think it's just a lucky accident.
Oh, really?
No, I do love like a lot of the Motown stuff, and I mean, I love Quincy Jones. I listen to a lot of Quincy Jones stuff, and he just, I think he's quite an amazing guy to listen to. Just you know, like his interviews, just real, and some of his early stuff and the Michael Jackson stuff. I mean, all the kind of brass stabs and stuff like that. I guess you just you do what you listen to, I think, or
that makes sense.
You use what you've been listening to. You know?
I feel like you do that, Ross, and you do it well. You've tapped into some way or multiple ways of being really authentic, and I think maybe that's an important element of your music. That like, whether that authenticity comes out as disco strings or something else, there's something about it that's genuine, and that's what makes it land.
I just think if you're if you're really into something, and I listen to like a lot of world music stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I just think I don't think you have a choice. I think you just naturally are going to morph into, and it's not even like trying to copy. It's almost like you take influences and just because I'm a piper from Scotland,
Mm-hmm.
you make it in your way, which then I
Mm-hmm.
suppose over time becomes your sound, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Without you're not even really trying to have a sound, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
You
totally.
just if I look like yeah, it's not something I would think about to be honest, but too much. I wouldn't say I want to do a let's do a Brazilian foro track here. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
just yeah, I don't know.
But it might just happen, and
It just happens, I
that's
think. Yeah,
yeah.
just because that's what you're listening to, and if it excites you, if a certain band or genre excites you, I think you just naturally kind of learn it, I suppose.
It seems to me like that can take some it can take some like I don't know, trust or bravery or something to kind of be willing to follow that, though, maybe especially if you've achieved any level of success with something already. Maybe it's just me in my head, right? But it seems to me like there could feel you could feel maybe pressured to keep redoing what was successful before, rather than just kind of like continuing to step forward into whatever happens.
I don't know.
Do you
I've not really had much success, so I don't really. There's not really a template of that to follow. You know what I mean?
I don't want to mess anything up, Ross, so I'm not trying to climb inside your head, but like it's delightful to hear you say that because, to me, and I know to a lot of my friends, you're like the most successful bagpiping musician in the world. So good. You keep thinking the way you're thinking. That's probably good. You carry on like that.
Yeah.
The rest of us will just
But
consider you very
it
successful.
depends what you think of success, I suppose.
Oh, sure.
um, yeah. I mean, what is success? Is it money?
Mm,
I don't know.
mm, mm.
So I'm not successful in.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that you're successful at. You are very influential. That's for sure. You're influential.
That's cool.
In fact, I was thinking about the influence that you've had on me just in the last couple years, because last time that we talked, it was partly thanks to your encouragement and enthusiasm about the value of playing whistle and like doing the work to get your head to shift to where you
Yeah.
could be thinking in the
Yeah.
notes that you were playing.
Hmm.
That I really made a big. I pushed for it for. I wanted to start playing Irish flute,
Hmm.
and that was when I was like, I gotta buckle down and do this, and I buckled down for a little bit, and I'm happy to say that I can think in D now, Ross,
Yeah.
and it's
That's a
good for me.
great
It's
thing.
been
It's a
it's
great
been
thing.
so good, and so actually though, I gotta tell you though, it messed me up in one big way. Um, Bela Fleck has this song called Big Country.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I love that one too. And the folk band that I play with, we do a version of Big Country.
Hmm.
And I hop from accordion to low whistle on that track.
Yeah. What do you do
And
in
I'd
E? Do you
already
do in E major or D?
no, we drop it to D, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'd already in my head, like I'd already come up with my parts. And so in my head I'm thinking in D when I'm playing on the accordion, but in my head I'm thinking in highland bagpipe A when I hop onto the whistle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But then I figured out how to think in D, and I hopped on the
Yeah.
whistle, and we were playing it. We're just grooving, playing along, and I hop on the whistle, and suddenly I'm playing it in the wrong key
Yeah.
because I'm thinking one note, and something else is coming out. So
Well,
mostly that's a good influence you've had on me, though it did trip me up big time this one time.
no, I think it's an important thing for pipers to step out of that, and it just makes you, I think, a better musician
Yeah,
and more like versatile.
that makes sense. Yeah.
If you're stuck in that piper grip, kind of,
Hmm.
everything's in. But like even like here's another one for you that'll be to expand on that one then.
Okay.
So right, we're on a D whistle,
Uh-huh.
so that's an instrument in itself. Now, if you go to an E whistle, that's also an instrument in itself. So
Yeah.
your D is not a D anymore. Your C natural is a D. So then
No, I'm not ready for it, Ross. I'm not ready.
that's a whole other. I think I can do that on the F whistle. There's a lot of
Yeah.
whistles that I'm getting better, but then it becomes even harder if you start to go and then rather than just thinking of the note, then you want to read. Not
Yeah.
so you don't transpose it like you're reading it in D, but you want to read it as in
Yeah.
what it is on the score. The actual
Yeah.
that's another like I don't work on it, but I have it in my head. I try to just not instantly transpose to like I'm
Mm.
reading in D.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to.
What about your C small pipes? Has it started turning into C for you, or does that still
No,
feel kind of like
not
A?
at all. Not at all.
Huh.
That's A.
Yeah.
I think
That's so
pipes. I think
close.
pipes
It's
is
the same
pipes.
fingering and everything.
Pipes
Yeah,
is
pipes are
pipes.
pipes. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't start. I don't think it gives any benefit otherwise.
Hmm.
Whistles is definitely
It's a
um,
different instrument, huh?
different instrument, and there's more scope.
Mm.
Um, there's you get more than the one octave. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, but it's just things to be. I should work on it more. It's good for your brain, I think, just to be to just how to think, just to be like Fraser Fifield, and he'll read you know something that's in D minor and play it on his F whistle like it's like he's reading in. I mean,
That's wild.
he's not he's doesn't have to transpose the music. You know.
Yeah, that is crazy. I mean, so impressive. So speaking of whistles and such, you mentioned last time that whistles had like started to feel even more than pipes like home for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Desert island instrument, you picked whistles.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, this it makes me think of also you were talking about like maybe 3 is the right number of this flavor of album. Maybe you do something else, and I like imagining like decades from now, what if people look back and it's like clearly a trilogy of albums that you made, but you didn't know that when you were making them, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
What if decades from now, centuries from now, you're known as Ross Ainslie, the whistle player, and people are delighted to find out that you also play bagpipes? Like what if the legacy gets flipped around in a way?
I've never
What do you
thought about
think?
it, but I think if I was doing live stuff, I think it depends on who it was, who it was with. Like if I'm playing with Tamiri, there's just a duo.
Hmm.
It's pretty much half and half pipes and whistle. If I play with Ali, it's maybe more pipes. Pre-jaw, it's all pipes. I think just for it's mostly for recordings. I think of my own stuff. I think
Hmm.
I don't know. I just find pipes a wee bit limited
Hmm.
in terms of what you can do melody wise.
Hmm.
It's not really been done before. I
Hmm.
just feel maybe a wee bit. It doesn't come so naturally to write a like, or it's unless it becomes naturally and quick and it sounds cohesive and good, which
Hmm.
doesn't happen so often on the pipes, but it does in the whistle.
Hmm.
So maybe it's just because I can write quicker on the whistle. I think it's just
Hmm.
it's for me the melodies are more interesting.
Hmm.
I think maybe I've like exhausted all the kind of possibilities, or I think maybe if on the pipes when I'm writing, you just you automatically just go, oh, that's something else, that's something else, that's some, it's.
Sure. Yeah.
I think maybe I think maybe the pipes I'm kind of going a wee bit more traditional as I get older. I seem to kind of I'm enjoying playing like competition reels and all that kind of stuff.
That's fun. Yeah. So it's
And not
becoming
just
green
like
again for you, huh?
yeah, I think it's I think with the pipes, I'm going back the way.
Yeah.
And I've done a few of these McCrimmon competitions in Lorient, and I actually I'm enjoying playing in that way.
Hmm.
I think I've kind of maybe it's an age thing, but I think I'm becoming of like hearing pipes played in the more modern way doesn't seem as right to me now for some reason.
Interesting. So it's kind of
Yeah,
a coming full circle kind of thing
I
going
think
on
so.
with pipes.
I think
Interesting.
so. even when listening, like when I hear something that's being played too fast, or if it's more like just riffs,
Mm-hmm.
it bugs me in a way that when it used to excite me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Yeah.
It's just in
I
the
wonder
last
if
few
that
years.
cycle continues, if it keeps happening, 30 years from now, how will you feel about it, That'll be,
Yeah, I don't know
huh.
if it's an age. I think he also playing with Breja as well. I think it's got me back into being a piper rather than playing pipes in a folk group or
Hmm.
I think yeah, I don't know where it's going to go. I've got Gordon's pipes. I've had them for a year now. I
His
got
own
them.
pipes, huh?
Yeah, I've got those Glens.
Wow.
So I think that's maybe it kind of sparked the kind of just playing the pipes as they
Yeah.
you know as you imagine them.
Are
Kind
those
of,
how do those function for you right now? Are they hanging on the wall to inspire you, or do you get them out and play them on
I'm
the
playing them all the
regular?
time.
Or
That's my pipes I play.
are you? That's
Yeah,
very cool.
I need to share them with Ali, and I'm getting I'm getting a wee bit
You're
too
being selfish
attached.
with them so far.
I've had them for a year. I've had them for a year and a bit now. So I keep saying to Ali, like, just tell me, let me know when you want them, and then hoping you won't ask.
Hoping he doesn't ask, right? Yeah.
But no, I
Yeah.
think, but they are great pipes, and like Ian, I did a recital with them last year at Piping Live, and
Yeah.
after the recital, Ian and Gordon's son, they said that I can be the custodian, and if but Ali needs to get a shot. That was the
That's pretty cool.
yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So it's yeah, because I grew up with them pipes. I
Yeah.
was getting passed around the bus, and
Mm.
they're a very iconic set of pipes. Probably the most iconic set of pipes in the world, really.
I
If you
would
think
I would
about it,
say so, yeah. Just based on who played them, yeah.
they're so old, and they're
Hmm.
like they're like cracks all over them, and but when they're going, they're amazing, amazing
How
set.
how how original to the last time Gordon played them? Like, do you still have reeds? The same bag. Like how much is it the
Well,
same setup?
when I got them, it had all this hemp, same hemp, everything.
Wow.
And not, I don't think the drones. I put in new drone reeds, but Ian would have put in drone reeds anyway.
Sure.
Since, but I was really, I didn't want to take the hemp off.
Yeah,
Um,
I understand. Yeah.
I had to because it was just a lot of it was PVC tape,
Yeah.
so it was just not. It wasn't good. There's a thing in the bass drone that is it's there's a certain point it'll just skip. Just
Yeah.
it's not got yeah. So you
Yeah.
have to kind of work around that. There's a
Right.
there's a Jubilee clip on the bass drone that keeps it together.
Mm,
And,
yeah.
but yeah, they're pretty much as they were. Yeah, I didn't enjoy taking the hemp off to be honest. It was quite it's probably 30 years of, but it kind of, I think it needed fresh stuff put on. And
Yeah.
they got a wee bit of a refurb from Derek Marr, and he also fixed a crack, but I need to get it fixed again. They're quite they're antiques. They're really
Hmm.
old. So, but Ian's glad they're being played. I think they were just Ian wasn't playing them too much when he
Hmm.
had them. I think they were kind of just so he was keen on them to be played. So, and I'm delighted to be playing them.
I would imagine, of course, I didn't know Gordon,
Mhm.
so, but I would imagine that it would be, his preference that they'd be making music rather than hanging on the wall. So that's
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
the right choice. I can imagine too, though, that it would be something of an emotional experience to be pulling the hemp off, you know.
yeah. It's just
Um,
it's like yeah. So, but you've got it's if it's not making them play as good or it's
mhm.
yeah, it's just has to be done.
Yeah. Well, another thing that I can, if I blamed you for messing me up on Big Country, Ross, I can thank you for probably saving me from a speeding ticket just the other night. Because I was driving home from a work thing late at night, and I was listening to the album. This was the first time I was listening on a streaming service. So I was, peeking over at my phone every once in a while to see what's this track called. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting, that kind of thing. And it was when I was listening to Slow Down, which I love that track. That's
Mm.
such a good track. Um, I was listening to that track, and I looked over and saw, oh, it's called "Slow Down." Yeah, that fits. That makes sense. And then I noticed that my speedometer, I was going quite a bit over the speed limit. Dropped it down, and like within seconds, passed a cop who was sitting on the side of the road. So, thanks, appreciate it.
Well, that track,
But
that's one of the tracks that's maybe been around for a bit longer than the others as well.
has it?
Yeah, because it was written for the band we had triced. It's 10 pipers. So we all right at kind of near the start when we got together, we individually had to write a piece for the band. So I wrote that piece for the Trist, but it never really worked because of the tuning of because there's a lot of notes, extended notes in that, and if it works okay on your own, but when you're adding 6 people to trying to get an F natural in tune or a C natural in tune,
Sure.
it can be difficult. So I mean, we did perform it in Celtic Connections, but it was never. It was not. The way I've recorded it was kind of the way I was hearing it in my head, as kind
The
of
way
thing.
you intended it to be.
Yeah, it needs the chords, I think, to kind of. But it's basically a synth line. Like there's two synth lines. One's kind of going in 3s over 4, and the other one's in 4. So they're both.
So they match up every 12. Is that kind of the idea?
They don't match up rhythmically, but they match up harmonically.
Oh, gotcha.
It's all, every note harmonizes with each other, but one's going in beats of 3 and one's in 4.
It was interesting. Like it felt like in Slow Down, the highland pipes are almost being used like a pad, like an accompaniment instrument.
It's a synth line at the back.
The way you describe it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I guess I didn't realize this interview was going to include so many mentions of Pink Floyd. But speaking of Pink Floyd, when that saxophone comes sailing in, oh, that's so satisfying. That I had a real reaction to that. That was lovely.
Strings are good on that. That was also a real add-on. I never myself and Greg, we sat and we were building the string parts for the people to read, and we together came up with with all the strings that go over Slow Down. Yeah, and at the end it's quite epic. And actually, Hamish came up with there's a piano part that he put in. And it wasn't in the take, but I think he'd phoned up and said, "There's a piano part. When I played it, I was like, that's definitely has to go in." But it wasn't when he was listening back. He was like, "Can you please look through the takes? So there's a better part." And then it was that part, and then we actually made the string. That the last time through the whole tune, we had to change the strings to fit this piano. It's like a build
I see.
Up, but amazing. It's quite filmy.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But that was Hamish. He had just played that one of the takes, and he'd remembered, and because he wasn't.
Oh, I'm glad he remembered.
I thought I played something better there.
Yeah.
That was. So yeah, that was just one of these like lucky accidents.
Well, it was clear. It's fun. I didn't mean to do this with the physical album where I was like listening blind, as it were, but I'm glad I did now just because it was fun. It's fun now to look back and realize, like, to me, the first time I listened through track 10, I was like, oh, what a beautiful ending.
Yeah.
And then then there were 2 more tracks, and it felt kind of like, oh.
Ending. It is the ending of the album.
Yeah, and so you achieved the feeling for sure, because I thought it was the ending, and the other ones felt like, like still lovely, but like a curtain call, like an encore, and they still belong with the.
Depending how what you bought, like on the vinyl, the album finishes track 10.
Oh, does it? So I got the CD, so I got the bonus tracks.
2 bonus tracks. Yeah. And actually, the reason for that is because of time.
You ran out of room on the vinyl.
But yeah, you can only get 20 odd minutes aside.
Yeah.
But actually, I wanted to finish the album on Sink or Swim was going to be the last track.
That
Track
makes
8.
sense. I mean, with the spoken,
Yeah,
with the
it was going to be
poetry and everything,
that
totally
one.
makes
Yeah,
sense. Yeah.
but then I always, you don't hear a fade out anymore on albums. And I
Yeah,
remember
sure.
hearing an interview with Steve Lukather, from Toto, the guitarist.
Yep. Yeah.
I love. I think he's hilarious. I watch a lot of interviews with him, and he was saying the fade outs were always some of the best music because
Hmm.
the track was finished and you were just jamming until.
Sure.
And then, so I wanted to that kind of thing. That's why I said to Paul, like, just keep solo. You just play a solo, and we'll fade out.
Hmm.
And it's also a
Hmm.
nice way to end the album. You don't hear it anymore.
Hmm.
You don't get fade outs really.
Yeah.
And
Definitely
it's
not so much a thing.
also, and it works with an end of an album. It's just,
Hmm.
yeah. And there's it kind of goes with that 70s disco thing. All them tracks were
Absolutely.
fade outs.
Yeah. Speaking of Toto, like I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, when I feel like I heard fade outs way more when I was a kid, and it
Hmm.
was bands like Toto,
Yeah.
Boston,
And it's a
Chicago,
jam.
even.
You just
Yeah.
jammed, and then that was it. They just
Yeah.
fade out the band. That's it.
Super interesting to me that you say Sink or Swim was originally going to be the ending, because one of the questions that I put into my notes for this interview was, I was just curious if Sink or Swim was some kind of focal point for the album, because it felt like the whole album crescendoed up to Sink or Swim
Yeah.
and then finishes through the 10th track, and
Hmm.
then there are the bonus tracks.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to me that those feelings still came through to me,
Yeah.
like as a listener,
Yeah.
that intention is present in the
Yeah.
music.
I think it was also going with that template thing is I've always finished the album with Jock's chat, Jock's
Yeah, that
poetry.
makes sense. Yeah.
That's why I think I wanted to finish on that. But I think it has more, the slowdown is definitely, I think, a better finisher.
It's a strong finish for
Strong
sure.
finisher, yeah. I think
Absolutely love it.
I think I would have had to work on a different ending for Sink or Swim to make it the end of the album. If you
Hmm.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just slow down was a more natural ending
Hmm.
conclusion. I think.
And speaking of track 9, that sort of the first half of that, like you mentioned, the Dawn in the Blue City.
Yeah.
Last time we talked, my friend Erin had written in and just mentioned that she really appreciates your ability to like blend voices,
Hmm.
as a composer, and I felt like track 9 on this album is a shining example of that.
Hmm.
Like where the whistles, is it whistle, sax, strings? I'm kind of playing
Just
it through my
fiddle,
head right now.
fiddle sax and whistle
Yeah.
sax and fiddle. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and it's like they're twining around each other, but also there are some points where um like one becomes the other, and I can't tell, like they must have joined up at some point, and so like what started as a whistle line, suddenly it's a saxophone instead,
Yeah,
and I didn't
I
notice
like
the
that
transition.
when you echo lines.
Yeah.
I do. I've done it, and it's kind of my go-to thing when I'm doing something slow.
Mm.
It's the echo, and then eventually it just morphs into the line with a harmony or whatever. But I've used that
Yeah.
loads. It's just
Wait,
yeah, it's an echo effect.
when you're doing that kind of thing, do you have to get real specific about writing down exactly what you want these musicians to do, or is there an element of jamming built into that where you could say to one of these other musicians, like, now I want I want you to echo me on this line, and right there just hit the record button and kind of like jam it out.
No, because I'll have it all written.
Yeah,
I'll have
so it's
the
clearly laid out.
guides done, if you know what I mean,
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
MIDI, and then
Hmm.
I just export it into Sibelius.
Hmm.
But but you can hear it. It's natural. It's like, imagine if you
Yeah.
if you put a delay. It's basically like a natural delay. When I was doing the guide, and I was telling Andrea who recorded it. I said, like, and I let him listen to what I had, and basically we didn't make it as aggressive as what I had on the guide, but I basically wanted all these parts to be rolling over each other.
Hmm.
So the delay of the delay of the delay of the delay.
Yeah.
It's not as much on the album, but it's basically like, so I record the whistle line, the fiddle comes in, the sax comes in, but then also they're delaying over that. And by the time then you're off to the next melody section, which is
Hmm.
also playing a part, and it just is. I suppose it's just trying to create a cavernous kind of
Hmm.
of melody and harmony that's just It's just like that creates a nice sound,
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. Yeah.
But
And it comes across. It's beautiful.
that Dawn in the Blue City, that was from a trip in Jodhpur in Rajasthan. There's a festival there it's called Riff Festival. It's Rajasthani International Folk Festival, and I've been over maybe
cool name, Riff Festival.
Riff, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been over 3 times, I think now, and it's in the Maharaja's fort in Jodhpur, and they always have a dawn concert. So basically, if you're not tired, if you can try and stay up, I think it's about 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, they start this concert. It's outdoor concert. Like the fort's in the background, and you're on this kind of. There's maybe sits about 100 to 200 people just on this platform, and it looks over the city, and then the concert starts pitch black, and then gradually you're basically, everyone's lying on like mattresses and bean bags. It's a real chilled kind of concert. And gradually you just see the sun just pokes through on the horizon, and then it just eventually, after an hour or two, you're looking, the city just starts to kind of, how manic India is. It eventually just wakes up.
Yeah.
And then you've kind of just went through this kind of spiritual kind of, and it's all like traditional folk Rajasthani music.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Hey friends, thanks so much for listening in to this episode, and thanks a ton to Ross for coming on the show. I hope it was enjoyable to listen to. I sure enjoyed chatting with him, and I've really been enjoying this album. Be sure to check the show notes. I'll have a link to where you can get the album, and also a link to Ross's website where you can keep up to date with other projects he's working on and the live shows that he's got coming up. Speaking of live shows, Ross has also recently started playing whistle with the band Uilleann, and I'll have a link to their website down below as well, so check that out. Hopefully they're going to be able to do some touring this year. We might even get to see them over here in the US, which would be awesome. So be sure to check those things out and all the other projects Ross is working on. I want to thank the folks who are supporting the show over on Patreon, and I will be giving a copy of this album out to one lucky supporter. I'm going to roll the dice real quick here as we head out and see who wins. We got a 10. Let's see. Alan McKenzie. Thank you so much, Alan, for your support, and to everybody else who's supported the show in the past and is currently supporting the show. If you want to help support the show, there'll be links for that as well in the show notes. Thank you again. Enjoy this tune. Go get a copy of the album and enjoy the rest of the tunes on it too, because they are all great. Thanks. Have a great day or night or week or whatever it is you're working on. Thank you very much.